uh, my fellow ministers and the DGs who are present here. My report today is an update on measures taken by both the Department of Higher Education and Training and the Department of Science and Innovation, which are my responsibilities, in response to COVID-19. Very briefly, the students who returned from Wuhan City completed their 14-day quarantine on Friday. And the Department of Health is working on the modalities for their release home. Our department will be responsible for transporting the students to their respective provinces and to ensure that they are reunited with their families, and we have secured transport on this score. There are also other students who returned from China who were our TVET college students who were there for workplace or for work-based learning experience, about 76 of them, who were arranged mainly by our SETAs, Sector Education and Training Authorities. On their arrival back, they were placed somewhere in Igoruleni for 14 days, and we have assigned some officials from our department to look after them. The one main challenge that we are addressing as the Department of Higher Education and Training is that of online learning. We are currently engaging with colleges on pursuing online learning modalities where possible, as well as working with our own universities to provide online learning. The aim of online learning is that this period of lockdown must not be treated as a holiday, and we would like to call upon all our students to make use of this period to study, as this will actually help us that after the lockdown we are able to catch up quicker with the time that has been lost. I am currently in discussions with the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, on how to deal with access to data in order to expand online learning, in particular to look at zero rating of data that is being used for online learning by the relevant telecom companies. On the 26th of March, we have made available e-learning guides to all our TVET colleges throughout the country. These guides can be downloaded on smartphones, tablets, and laptops. We will further develop structured catch-up programs for the annual National Curriculum vocational programs once the colleges reopen. As previously reported, the department has requested all universities to complete an updated survey on their IT capability for offering online learning. As a department working together with the Tertiary Education and Research Network of South Africa, which helps to provide the network for online learning, we have now started to analyze the survey results to identify any institutions that require immediate assistance to enhance their capabilities. Another matter I would like to report upon today is students who are remaining on university campuses. As we are implementing these measures to ensure that our institutions are not adversely affected by the virus, we are also putting measures to ensure that students who remain on our residences comply with the regulations and are also safe. I've indicated before that not all students have left residences, although the overwhelming majority have left the residences. Now, if I can just give you an idea, none of the students at our TVET colleges are in their residences. They've all gone home. With universities, the universities that have got more than 200 students who are staying in residences at the moment, it's University of Johannesburg with 940 students, University of the Western Cape, 370 students, Stellenbosch University with 971 students, University of Pretoria with 236 students, Cape Peninsula University of Technology, which has the highest number of students in residences of all our universities, 1,853. Nelson Mandela University has got 382 students. I must say that most of these students are international students who come from outside South Africa, who are not staying, who are not from our country. Yesterday, though, I must say that I was concerned in Velase that there were 60 students at the University of Fort Hare who were demanding to remain in the institution. When we checked, we found that of the 60, only 20 were registered students, all foreign nationals. 40 were not registered students, but staying in our university residences, a matter that we will actually have to attend to. Because surely it can't be that as a country, we are struggling so much with student accommodation, but part of it is occupied by students who are, by people who are actually not registered. Now, my department, working together with our COVID-19 task team for post-school education and training, which is led by our Deputy Minister, Bhuti Manamela, is up and running now to deal with all contingency and other measures to ensure that all is going well on that score. On NSFAS, which is another matter that is important, all NSFAS funded and registered students will receive their allowances during the recess. We are not going to stop any of the allowances. Those who are getting food allowances, those who are getting assistance with personal care allowances, we have also distributed allowances for learning materials. According to the report that I have received from the NSFAS administrator, Dr. Randall Carlson, NSFAS has processed almost all applications that have been received to date, including the TVET college and university walk-ins who had not applied initially. They are all now dealt with. NSFAS, therefore, has made provisional funding available to 448,038 university students for this 2020 academic year, and 350,289 registration records from institutions have been received. In other words, we have now, in 2020, an estimated just about 800,000 university and TVET college students who are on NSFAS, out of the total of about 2 million university and TVET college students combined. We have also made total upfront payments to institutions to date to an amount of 4.2 billion rands. This amount includes the second upfront payment of 677 million rands. With all these upfront payments have been meant to ensure not NSFAS student pays registration or is supposed to pay even if those students are owing, as well as for other allowances like transport and accommodation. The last section of my report is on science and innovation interventions in dealing with COVID-19. As reported in my previous statement, our Department of Science and Innovation, through the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR, we have successfully commissioned and finalized the physical setup of what we call the Core Situational Awareness Platform. In ordinary language, we call this the dashboard, which tells us about, which enables us actually to look into the whole country, including right up to street and household level, as to where the coronavirus is, based on the data that we are putting in. A joint CSIR and Department of Health team are hard at work creating a range of data warehouses including the geographical spread of the disease, the current cases, the categories of people with health vulnerabilities, the location of health and other facilities, amongst others. This is becoming a core of our war against the virus, because by having a central place to look at the epidemiology and how the virus is changing, we are then able to, as government, allocate the necessary resources to particular places. Protocols and arrangements are also being facilitated by our Department of Science and Innovation to enable us to draw this information. As I have said, we are working very closely with the Department of Health. Our teams are based here, the main teams at the CSIR, so that we are better able to respond to this. The last section, or the last matter that I would like to talk about, which we are also doing on the science and innovation side, is the study that we are doing through the Human Sciences Research Council, a survey to better understand current behaviors and patterns, as well as our community's attitudes towards the virus, which is something that is important for purposes of intervention. As at the 27th of March, we have surveyed about 2,400 people. And together with the Department of Health, we will periodically be releasing the results so that we are able to inform the nation of how our people are responding and their attitude towards the virus, because the human factor is perhaps the most important and attitude aspect in dealing with a pandemic like this. And we are pleased to say that a number of researchers, as well as private sector players, have expressed a willingness to assist, and we will be making the necessary follow-ups. We will continue to update the public on this as we move along. Thank you very much, Minister Mthembu and colleagues.
Thank you, Sisi. Thank you, Minister Nzimanda. We will now call upon the Minister of Human Settlements and Water and Sanitation.
It's the other way.
Oh, it's the other way. Oh, Minister of Social Development, Minister Lindiwe Zulu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mthembu. I know that it's really testing for you, because you've been up all the time and organizing us and mobilizing us and making sure that we are here on time to communicate to the people of South Africa. From the Department of Social Development, the first thing that I would like to do is to thank the people of South Africa, obviously, those that have stepped up to make sure that we do everything we can to ensure that people are safe. But I would also like to thank, in particular, those that are taking care of the most vulnerable of our society, the elderly, people with disability, those that are taking care of children. We don't take it for granted that this is a very testing time for caregivers, it's a testing time for parents, it's a testing time for everybody. And I know, as a Minister of Social Development, I'm also getting calls from mothers and fathers who are saying their children are under stress and strain because they cannot move beyond their surroundings, and children are children, they want to be running around. But I thank the parents for taking the stress and strain and continue to ask them to really keep safe themselves as parents, but also make sure that they do everything they can to occupy their children at this point in time. We have, as a department, after the regulations were gazetted, we had to develop our own government notice, which covers our areas of work as the Department of Social Development. And accordingly, because we have to make sure that everything is done properly by law, there is a government notice that specifically looks into the areas of social development. The schedule for it covers the areas of our work, and therefore it is a request from myself and the department that those that are continuing with the services, they acquaint themselves with these directives so that they make sure that they do things right. Under our responsibility, we have areas of substance abuse treatment centers and halfway houses. The guidelines clearly indicate, I'm not going to read all of them. All I will do is to highlight the areas that are of major concern to us. So it's substance abuse and treatment centers and halfway houses. It's child and youth care centers. It's shelters for victims of crime and violence, including gender-based violence. Hence, you see me today with my cap. I want us to always appreciate the fact that there is coronavirus and everyone is concentrating and focusing on defeating it, but we also must be conscious at all times that we do have other social ills that we must not lose sight of. We also cover the old age homes and frail care facilities, residential facilities for persons with disabilities, respite care facilities, center and community-based, residential facility for persons with disabilities, respite care, home-based, community nutrition development centers, CNDCs, and I know that many have been asking us whether people are going to be able to continue getting the support that they normally get. Also, we have the social relief of distress, and this is also one that we'll be looking into. What do we do to make sure that the communities who are going to find themselves under distress extraordinarily than usual, what is it that we're going to do to make sure that we service them in terms of food parcels, in terms of food that they can receive from ourselves? Psychological support services, cooperative entities, the National Development Agency, which is one of our entities, South African Social Security Agency, which is SASSA, directives to contain the spread of coronavirus in exercising the care and contact by persons who are co-holders of parental responsibilities and rights during the lockdown period. This is one of the areas where we've been receiving, personally I've also been receiving calls from parents who are co-holders of parental responsibilities and rights, and many are wondering whether they will be able to transport the children back and forth from one parent or the other. These directives cover that aspect. Also our drop-in centers, because normally we have the drop-in centers where beneficiaries visit to get food assistance, food parcels, and so forth. So this directive that comes out clearly is a directive that comes out directly from the regulations that were gazetted already. The most important areas which I think are going to be a testing time for us in particular will relate to payment of social grants, and we have already indicated that payments will be done from the 30th to the 31st of this month, starting with older persons and persons with disability, and this will also include women with babies, and I'm hoping that women with babies can be able to leave the babies at home when they go get their social grants. All other social grants will be paid on the 1st of April as per normal schedule. Both SASSA and the South African Post Office have finalized all logistical arrangements pertaining to social grant payments. When we say we've arranged all logistical arrangements, the understanding and appreciation also must be that we are sure we will find in some instances where these are not adequate. So we are having a conversation with the Department of Transport and the Minister of Transport, who will be engaging in terms of looking at the times for people to be able to take the transport to the areas where they are supposed to get their social grants. But further to that, we are also talking to the Departments of Defense, and we are looking at what other extra support can we get, because we know that Defense also has buses here and there, but that will only depend if there is a need for that. We have activated government fleet across all provinces to ensure that older persons and persons with disability get to their pay points to get their social grants. I do want to indicate here that we are working very well with the provinces, from the MECs who I am in touch with, I talk to them all the time, as well as the HODs and the regional managers of SASSA and NDA. We are really pushing to make sure that our systems step up and our systems are in place. But of course, the test will be when the social grants, when the people want to access their social grants. We will publish the list and contact details of SASSA regional managers that members of the public can contact if they experience any challenges. The SASSA and SAPO call centers will remain operational to respond to the public. We are deploying SASSA officials at all pay points to monitor and report on service delivery challenges. We are also looking at getting volunteers who will be taken care of under the national development agencies, because we will need social grant, we will need the social grant recipients to be assisted, especially the elderly. With regard to shelters for persons living and working on the streets, we have directed and requested all provinces to activate shelters to provide accommodation and meals to people working and living in streets, including children. And we are expecting the provinces to work very well with the municipalities. I do wish to thank the provinces who stepped up long even before we were able to give the directive, for finding the shelters, for helping those that are living on the street with hygiene, and also the access to food and other necessities. I'm sure many of you did see the interviews that were done by some of the MECs, and they were clearly showing what they are practically doing. We do want to say, on the other hand, people who live on the street are not very easy sometimes. Some will go to the shelters because they appreciate and understand the danger, but there are those who we must also appreciate and understand that they are drug abusers. They use drugs. Even if they can go to the shelters, some of them will go out into the street because they're used to this habit. We want to say to them, we'll communicate to them in the best way that we can. When the police find them, we are not going to be following to the police stations or helping them. If the police find them, the police will have to do what they have to do. We also have services to persons with disability. All residential facilities, including respite care at centers and community-based, have been declared essential services. All personnel have been given protective wear and permits to continue providing services, including family support to those with severe disabilities. Service to older persons, we have directed all provinces to put in place mechanisms to consistently monitor vulnerable older persons who might be staying in their homes. This is the time when we also would like to call upon our communities, because they know where the elderly are. They must appreciate and understand that we might not necessarily at a quick speed be able to reach all of them. Please, we ask you to let us know when you know that they are the elderly who do not have access, who cannot even walk out. And we want to thank again those that are going and visiting them. We're going to try in the best way we can to get the provinces to make sure that they also have volunteers who will go to those private homes and families. And we know that it's very taxing for them because everyone is afraid now. What we don't want is post-corona for us to be finding family members or members of the elderly who have found themselves, who will find that maybe they've gone worse than what they were before. So we ask that we be assisted. Recruitment of additional social service personnel. Provinces are recruiting additional 1,809 social service personnel to provide psychosocial support services to affected families. We are focusing on unemployed social workers who benefited from the department's scholarship program. I'm sure you are aware of the fact that many of the social workers had been complaining about the fact that they were trained by the department, but they are not employed. this is a time for us to really find them and make sure that they are employed and make sure that they help us. Service delivery to community. From social development point of view, we are ready to contribute in any ways we can to contain and mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on our people. Once again, we appeal to our people to comply with the regulations and to avoid exposing themselves and others to possible infection of this virus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sis. Thank you, Minister Zulu. Let's now allow Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, our Minister of Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation, to come and speak to us. Minister.
Thank you very much, Minister Jackson Mthembu. My name is Lindiwe Sisulu. The other one is Lindiwe Zulu, who has just given her briefing. Members of the media, this is a follow-up briefing to you, following on the briefing that we gave to you on the 23rd of March. Since then, we've been hard at work at the command center that we indicated we have established at the Rand Water. And we use modern technology and zoom into all our water boards across the country in every province and talk to them on a regular basis so that we understand what the needs of the various provinces are. We've assessed these and we've started working to make sure that we are providing the necessary support. We also work with the Department of COCTA, which is always present in our meetings, because some of the work that we are doing now is the responsibility of municipalities, but working together we have found that we go a long way in dealing with the issue of water and sanitation. And also possibly in the long term, we also need to deal with infrastructure. We've assessed our high-risk areas, and the last time I was here, I indicated that we're targeting 2,000 communities across the country. These are our hotspots. Some of them are informal settlements, some of them are informal in the urban areas, and some of them are informal settlements in the rural areas. And in the rural areas, it's largely those areas that have suffered drought, and we're continuing our support to them. To ensure water supply to all our people, we have agreed, as I indicated the last time, with Santaco and the municipalities to identify areas that are around congested places, around taxi ranks and etc., where we've put up our water supply services. I think that most of you here will have been given a map that indicates how far we've gone with the distribution of our water tanks, and we are continuing now with our boreholes. As people are in lockdown, we are providing water to them in various areas that are accessible to them. We've added onto the list of those areas that are accessible to them, areas around where chiefs are for people in the rural areas. And in discussions with Minister of Education, she has requested that we also identify schools as some of the areas where we will have water tanks for people to have access to water. We've also identified the perimeters around churches as places where it will be possible for people to get to, and also around police stations. So far, we've gone ahead with procuring water tanks, and we've procured 41,000 of them. The greatest number is the one that goes to the Eastern Cape. We have currently procured 2,342 for the Eastern Cape. 1,700 for the Free State, 12,130 for Gauteng, 4,274 for KwaZulu-Natal, 1,200 for Limpopo. We are still working on Mpumalanga to provide them with 600, and Northwest with 600. The totality of what we've put on the ground, which is what you'll find in your map, is 41,000 tanks within 2 days. We're hoping that if we go on at this rate, we will be able to cover all those areas that are badly in need of water. We have decided that to cut this whole process, the long process of procurement, we would go direct to the distributors or those people who are manufacturing, and we've been in touch with the associations that are manufacturing our tanks, and they have said that they have 400,000 tanks in store that are available for us to procure. So if any of my colleagues here would like additional water at a price, we'll be able to share those 400,000 tanks. In addition to that, we've also indicated to you at the last meeting that we are renting to buy water tankers. Tankers are those vehicles that would take water from the source and put them into the water tanks. We are also going to ask the communities around where we put our water tanks to allocate at least one person per day to look after the tanks, so that we are sure that there are no leakages from the tanks, and we are sure also that when the tank is dry, we are given forewarning so that we are able to direct our tankers to those places. At this point, it is important for me to indicate that I am responsible for two very difficult departments. One is water and sanitation, and the other one is human settlements. And human settlements, our biggest problem is the densification of the areas there. We keep talking about social distance, and social distance does not deal with the situation that we have in informal settlements. So it translates very much into a middle-class solution, until we are able to persuade the people in informal settlements that we need to come in and assist them to de-densify the areas. In doing so, we are taking cognizance of the fact that there are several associations that have been traditionally working with informal settlements, like Abahlali Basemjondolo, like the Federation of South African Slum Dwellers Association. We will be discussing with them how we approach this situation. We need to be able to convince the people who live in informal settlements that we would need to have a way of getting into the informal settlement and providing the necessary sanitation, as we will be providing sanitation for all our streets along the towns. We disinfect them on a regular basis. We would like to disinfect the areas where the informal settlements are. And it is not possible right now in some of these areas to drive into those areas to do the necessary disinfectation that we want to put through to provide them with the necessary security. I want also, before I end my short input, to indicate that we have identified those areas in human settlements where we will be able to provide them with alternative accommodation. And these areas are Duncan Village in Mdantsane, Kennedy Road in Durban, Kosovo in the Western Cape, Dunoon in the Western Cape, Diepsloot here in Gauteng, and a number of other areas which will be in your pack as you leave. We've identified those areas as areas that we would like to negotiate with the residents there to find a way in which we can put them in alternative accommodation called transitional residential areas. I want to repeat to you and to all the people who are listening the number that you would be calling to lodge any complaint about any problem that you have with regard to water, or any matter that you'd like to bring to our attention. We would like this for those television stations that are running here to run messages on a regular basis so people know where they can get water. Water is the first port of call for anybody on a daily basis to wash their hands with soap for 20 seconds. The number is 0800 200 200. 0800 200 200. Our gratitude goes to those people who have supported us in this endeavor, making sure that we are able to put the tanks that we have where they should be, and also supported us in a number of ways. The first is the chairman of ShopRite and Checkers Group, Dr. Christo Visto. The group has pledged and donated a daily donation of 40 liters of water in 5-liter containers to be distributed in the Western Cape regional office of his farm for distribution. And the sites will also be identified throughout the week, especially around Khayelitsha and etc. We would also want Dr. Visto to allow us to be able to pick up these 5 liters, especially for the elderly, so that they have water in their homes on a regular basis. We would like to give our gratitude to the Anglo-American group, which has pledged support for the provision of water and soap, as well as land for temporary shelter for people that we would need to relocate from informal settlements. I'd like to again thank Busa and Santako. They're working together with our department to identify other areas other than those that we identified the last time, which are urgently in need of support. We would like to thank AMSA. AMSA is the Association of Rotational Molders of South Africa. We called them and indicated to them that we would like to buy out their entire stock. And they have put aside their entire stock of water tanks. This means that Minister Mthembu is unable to buy any tank for his grandmother in Witbank, and we've told him so. So there will not be any tanks for sale. We've bought out all of them, and they're now in our in our cohort of what we're needing to use. They've indicated to us that they have right now 400,000 tanks, which we will be taking and buying from them to put in all of those areas that are in need of water. We're also extremely grateful to the Gift of the Givers for their availability to drill boreholes, because in those tanks that we will be putting everywhere, we need water, and they have offered to assist us in that matter. Thank you very much, Minister Mthembu. And I'm sorry about your grandmother's tank.
Thank you, Sis Lindiwe Sisulu. That's exactly what I said when I called you, Sis Lindy. But thank you, colleagues. As we have said, this is the second day of the lockdown, and our colleagues were reporting on commitments that they had made and measures that they will take during the lockdown. Minister Motshekga did speak to the nation last week on Friday. Was it Thursday? Or last week's Thursday? Am I so? Yeah. I've lost it. Yes, this week, Thursday, she did speak to the nation about visual learning for our learners that are at home. So that's why she was not going to come here and repeat what she said on Thursday. But she is available for any questions. That's why she's here. We will now take your questions. Colleagues will take your hands so that you can ask whatever questions you would like to ask from my colleagues. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like we will go home early. Sir.
Thank you. Barry Bateman from ENCA. Just to recount an experience that I had this morning and what many of my colleagues have also experienced at shopping malls, where the number of people are being controlled with access to the actual mall. But what this has led to is a significant queue outside the mall, snaking hundreds of meters, people standing in close proximity to each other. Now, why I'm telling you this for the purpose of this briefing is the social grants issue, Minister. So if you could, what mechanisms are going to be put in place to avoid that kind of bunching and people queuing for hours in essentially undermines the whole purpose of the lockdown, social distancing and the like. So if you can please explain to me what will be done, especially when, I might point out, you're dealing with elderly and potentially people who have challenges with immune systems, that immunocompromised people. So if you just put in place, tell me what mechanisms are in place. Thank you.
Thank you. The next colleague.
Good day, everyone. My name is Johnny Saima Romo. I'm with African News Agents in Pretoria. My first question for the Minister of Social Development. Minister, I wanted to inquire, Minister, with the families of South Africa which are separated, could you clarify, because we saw on social media people asking, is a person allowed to say, I'm going to see my children in another location? You touched on it when you were on the podium. Could you clarify what are the requirements and the regulations in law if someone wants to go and see their children who are based in another location? Then the second question for the Minister, Minister Zulu. With the number of informal settlements in the province of Gauteng, the thousands of tanks you have procured, the number of tanks you have procured, are they catching up with the demand of the informal settlements? Because there are too many informal settlements around Gauteng. Are you catching up with that demand? Thank you so much.
I can assure you that your question on tanks, I think you wanted to direct it to Minister Sisulu, because it can't go to Minister Zulu. That's just for your free assistance. Thank you very much. Next.
Samkelo Masego from the SABC. Minister Lindiwe Sisulu of Water and Sanitation. For instance, if you go to a deep rural area like Mhlangandlovu in KwaZulu-Natal, Mshwati, that area has no water. That area is largely populated. There was a colleague of mine, Anda Mhlongo, who went to a deep rural area in Ulundi. There is no water in deep rural parts of this country, in all 9 provinces. How are you getting, and what measures have you put in place? I hear you are saying you've procured about 42,000 water tankers, but where is the proactive action in those tanks being there as in yesterday, or are you still waiting to follow usual government red tape, long processes in order for you to get those tankers to these people in these areas? Then this morning I took a drive to informal settlements in Germiston and in Tembisa. People are living under deplorable conditions. There is no sort of social distancing where informal settlements are directly next to one another, where people are living in a shack and 6 or 7 of them. Why aren't we seeing relevant authorities taking these people, separating them, and putting them into certain areas where they could be for the next 21 days? Where are the proactive measures that are there to save the social livelihood of those whom evidently vote for you and those in power at the end of the day? To the Minister of Social Development, the elderly, your constituency, particularly around rural areas, the education when it comes to this particular pandemic is not filtering down to these downtrodden people. What other measures are being used besides the SABC now announcing that SABC 2 and SABC 3 will be used to inform the people of this nature? What other methods are you employing of using, for instance, social workers to go out and to help and assist these particular people with this pandemic who may not have the necessary information. And lastly, to the Minister of Education, Angie Motshekga. Minister, are we actually cancelling this academic year for matriculants? What methods are being put in place for the class of 2020 to be receiving some sort of education besides the usual methods? You've announced that certain radio platforms and TV platforms will be used to educate the core and essential subjects like mathematics and physics. Thank you.
Next one.
News 24. Minister Zulu, I wanted to ask with regards to the homeless. Driving here, I spoke to two gentlemen who were saying that their challenge is that the shelters, they exceed the numbers in the shelters. I just wanted to know, is that your only challenge, the fact that these homeless are drug abusers and they tend to want to be in the streets? Is that your only challenge that you've received in terms of allocating the homeless? And as well, I wanted to, just as an addition to Samkele's question, there's also the issue around language. When you, in terms of how you translate your messaging to people. Most of South Africans are not English speakers, but they can't really seem to have, this language is not translating, it's not transmitting to them. How are you raising awareness to those people, to people in the rural areas? And then to Minister Jackson Tembu, I just wanted to find out if I could get your reaction to international media saying that the measures that have been taken by South Africa in terms of controlling the virus are worse than the measures that were taken during the apartheid era.
Yeah, I nearly answered. Is there any other person who wants to answer? Are we done now? Thank you. Maybe let me, oh, there's another one. Oh, it's done. Thank you very much. Maybe let's just, I don't know which international media says so, but from what we have learned from our people now, our people who have heeded the call by our government and our president to stay at home, to observe social distancing, and to wash their hands frequently as a way of protecting themselves and their families against this coronavirus, say we are doing a good thing. Now, it's not only our people, it's also organizations that they belong to, whether political or non-governmental organizations or church organizations that we have met with the president, organizations that are in the business sector. All these organizations say that South Africa is doing quite a good job in protecting our people against this virus because it indeed kills. The only way of protecting our people is to ensure that our people stay at home. Now, that is the message, by the way, that all countries throughout the world are dishing out. Whether you go to France, whether you go to Italy, whether you go to Germany, the message, and UK, the message, USA, the message that the entire world, including the World Health Organization, the message that is going out is for people to stay at home. Now, how will that be worse than apartheid? I have no idea. Because we need to take all measures available to us to save lives. All measures available to the state to save lives. And the only way for all of us not to contract this disease is when we stay at home. Because when we go out of our homes, we go and contract this disease and bring it to not only to us, but to our families as well. I therefore, well, I've not seen that piece of write-up, and I don't know which journalist would have written such, but of course, the people of our country will not agree with such write-up. Organizations in this country will not agree with such a write-up, because we are doing everything we can to protect our people against this deadly disease. Having said so, I will now hand over to my colleagues to answer. I don't know who's the first one. Yeah, press on forward. Yeah.
Thank you very much. The first question I would like to deal with relates to co-parenting. As I indicated earlier, that there were regulations that were issued, and all departments therefore then had to develop their own directive. Under our directive, which covers that area, under, I'll tell you just now, under psychosocial support, paragraph M, it says, directive to contain the spread of coronavirus in exercising the care contact by persons who are co-holders of parental responsibility during the lockdown period. It clearly states, movement of children between co-holders of parental responsibilities during the lockdown period is prohibited. This is to ensure that the child is not exposed to any possible infection whilst moving from primary caregiver premises to the other. The child shall remain in custody of the parent with whom the child was with when the lockdown was affected. The parent who is the child during the lockdown, who's not with the child during the lockdown period, in order to maintain a personal relationship with the child, may communicate on regular basis with the child in other manner, including telephonic and other. I know that when it's written down, people will say, yeah, you've written it down, but the reality on the ground is something very different. I did make the plea from the very press briefing that we had to say that parents who have co-rights and must really exercise in the best way that they can a time of appreciating and understanding the extraordinary circumstances in which we are finding ourselves. And I know many have been calling me directly to say, but can't we even exchange the children maybe at a pharmacy or something of that sort? The bottom line is this: you need to be able to protect your children. It's a period of 21 days, and we have also indicated that it's 21 days where a lot needs to be done in terms of tolerance, in terms of really just patience, in terms of we are making a call to everyone that it is for their own good, it is also for the good of the children. If in case it so happens that the 21 days we find ourselves still in a difficult situation, these regulations and the notices that we are issuing, we do have the space to look at them and see whether at the end of the day they are helpful or not helpful. But for now, we need to make sure that everybody really complies with this, because it's beyond the parents and the children themselves. It's the entire nation that's finding itself in a difficult period, and therefore we are pleading with parents to please exercise the patience as far as they possibly can. With regard to the information going to the elderly, I did indicate when I was speaking that one of the things that we did from the very beginning was to make sure that provincial and local structures set up. And the basis for us doing that, it's not about Lindiwe Zulu, who is a minister sitting at national giving just directive and nothing happening. The reason why we are communicating and ensuring that provinces and local structures strengthen their institutional capacity, it is because they are the ones who are in the front line, who are there with their communities, and therefore we have requested that they mobilize the NPOs who normally do the advocacy. We've said we will step up and assist the NPOs and the NGOs. We've also requested them to make sure that the social workers, as I indicated, we have to get more social workers on the street, but also make sure that the social workers themselves are protected. They have all the necessary gear and all the necessary equipment for them to do the visits to the elderly. We have also made sure that at local level, because remember that the president had asked us, even before the coronavirus, he had said to us, let us work at district level with the district development model. There isn't a time that can ever test that either than now, when we really need to get the districts to step up and assist us. For instance, the issue of transport. We can sit here again in Pretoria and be saying lots of things. The real issue will be, are the provinces, are the local structures knowledgeable of where are the biggest numbers of elderly people will be coming from? And SASSA, by the way, has all the information. If you ask SASSA any moment, what is the highest density? If you ask SASSA any moment, where are the places where they normally have challenges? They know exactly, and therefore, in their planning, we are prioritizing those areas. The awareness, obviously, we are relying nagini njengoba the reason why nilapha namhlanje nenzelo ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi masikhuluma nabantu emakhaya basizwe ukuthi sicela ukuthi bakhulume neSASSA, bakhulume neNDA, bakhulume nama-province ukuthi into ezokwenzeka ngendaba ye-transport, ngendaba yokuvalwa kwama-shop nako konke lonto leyo. Sicela ukuthi abaningi bakhulume nama-local structures wabo, yibo azoba director ukuthi kufuneka benze njani. With regard to i-translation, social development sisebenzisana neSASSA, sivumelene ukuthi all the pamphlets and leaflets esizenzayo, they must be in the 11 different languages. And who's going to distribute that? Again, the distribution ifuneka yenzeke ema-provincini. The homeless, kubuzwa ngokuthi, are we going to be exceeding in the numbers? Yes, it is true, it is possible. There's too many people out on the streets, and therefore there will be pressure ema-provincini nakuma local structures. But now gokuhle is that most of the NGOs and the NPOs that we work with have stepped up in terms of asking us directly, kukuphi lapho nifuna uncedo khona, Minister. So we will be directing them to go out there. And also, ukhona uMinister we-Human Settlement, nabo bazosincedisa ngendawo, baphinde futhi sincediswe na i-department department yaka Minister Patricia de Lille, Public Works, nabo sikhulumisana nabo ukuthi sicela ukuthi izindlu indawo lezi ezingenabantu yisikhathi sokuthi sizilungise. Now I did indicate when I was speaking ukuthi sizoba nawo ama-problem. Those who are in the homes, some of them are not going to want to stay there, but in Daba, it's beyond the issue yalabo who are drug abusers. It's also about what will be accessible in those shelters, because we can't have shelters and then people have got no water, people have got no food, people have got no. That's why sikhuluma nange SRD program yethu ukuthi nalapho kuzofuneka ukuthi isincedise. As for ke labo abathi sidlulise imithetho which are draconian laws, ngizophinde ngisho futhi ngithi I think labo abakhuluma lokho azange ke bahlale under i-apartheid. Abantu abake bahlala under i-apartheid bayazi ukuthi kukhulunywa ngani. Asikakafiki emthethweni le eqinisa isandla ngoba sisethemba ukuthi abantu base South Africa bayibona lenhlekelele esikuyo nabo. Ngifuna ukuphinda futhi, ake siyeke ukukhuluma ingathi abantu bakithi yinkomo abezwa. Abantu bakithi imajority yabo bayasizwa ukuthi sithini. Kukhona ke just a few laba bazofuna ukuthi amaphoyisa ubheka icele uMinister abagijimise, but abaningi abantu base South Africa bawutlisisa hantle hore bua ka eng. Libone they want to protect themselves, libone they don't want to expose themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Sisulu.
Thank you very much, Minister Mtembu. The first question comes from a gentleman whose name I did not quite get, but he asks, what are we doing about the informal settlements? When are we moving our people? The informal settlements are so many. We did not have the coronavirus coming in, creeping into our country. Almost overnight, we realized we had it, and we had to deal with the situation that we have. Historically, we have these many informal settlements, and we are now beginning to prepare ground for them to be taken to, but this has to be done through negotiations, because you, as a journalist, will know how much our people in the past have resented being moved to other areas. So we will put up a particular program that is aimed, together with those associations that deal with informal settlement dwellers, to target them with messages that indicate that for their own health, it is important that they consider moving to other areas. We have across the country 3,000 hectares that we have procured, and our Human Settlements Development Agency is busy preparing these sites to ensure that we are able to take people there, to live there, as soon as it is possible for us to do that. So these are not people who are just living there and left on their own resources. What we're doing for the time being is providing them with disinfectant, with soap, with water, to the extent that it is possible for us to do so. The donations that we have asked for and received from the various entities that we have indicated are aimed at assisting them lead as normal a life as possible. We are also in the process of upgrading their sanitation and making sure that we can put ablution blocks as opposed to the single toilets that they use now. So we are hard at work making sure that everybody has access to proper sanitation, everybody has proper access to water, and it is possible for us to protect them. Any one more person getting infected in South Africa affects all of us. So it's not about choosing one sector over another. We are dedicating our time to dealing with persuading the people we have in the informal settlements. When we are certain that they are willing to leave those areas, we would like them to do so willingly. Samgele, the last time I spoke here, I did indicate the number that should be called should there be a problem. And I'm sure you would have known. It's 0800 200 200. And if you called it before you came here, they would immediately by now have sent water to Ulundi. But they know now, and they will be attending to the matter. KwaZulu-Natal has ordered 3,000 water tanks, and they have discovered that the 3,000 water tanks for the areas that they had identified are not enough for KwaZulu-Natal, so they've ordered an additional 1,200 and something tanks, which should be there in the shortest possible time. Now that we have access to 400,000 tanks, it will be possible for us in the next 3 or 4 days to have rolled out water to everybody. However, in discussions that I will be having with Minister of Education, we will be putting some mechanism where people will be able to access water from schools. Any nearby schools, we will be putting up structures that will make it possible for them, especially municipal workers, to get there and get water. But we are going around to every area we've identified as needing water. I'm not sure if I have not covered all of those areas.
No, if you have not, they will say that you have not. We'll go back to them. It's fine.
We'll go back.
Yeah,
okay,
we'll go.
Thanks.
Minister Andrew Mtsha.
Okay. No, thank you, Chair. The question was about whether we had given up on the year and what is going to happen with the grade 12s. And we had even said that on Thursday, that as a sector, we just cannot afford to give up on the year. It could really throw the system off badly. So we are doing all we can to defend and protect the year. So the grade 12s should be ready by hook or crook their writing this year. We're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that they do sit for exams, in all grades. For instance, the plans that we have and the programs that we have, which in the main are going to start kicking in next week, Tuesday, which would have been the day for the opening of schools, because in any case, we're on holiday. This week it was our autumn break. So schools are opening next week, Tuesday. So that's the package we're announcing on Thursday, which all of it, it's a long package. It's, if you visit our website, you get all the programs and the links. But we're also saying that we're aware of its limitations because not all children will be able to access either TVs or even radios which will be giving information. So we're using that package to keep learning continuing. But we're also counting mainly on what we call a recovery program. And that's what we're working on with the MECs, to say when schools, the best effective way which we are in control of, it's when we have a face-to-face. We have long-standing experiences around the recovery programs. You will know that we would have been disrupted by communities for a long time, and I think we've developed the skill on how to recover under very difficult conditions. So we're counting on those measures. So after the lockdown is lifted on the 16th, we have agreed with MECs because we're in constant communication, we're preparing recovery materials, and the materials that we're developing are going to help us to intensify teaching at the time the lockdown is lifted. So if we're not allowed as a sector, for instance, on the 16th to go back, we have a plan to say, what are we going to do with the grade 12s? We are preparing that plan. If we do go back, we're also ready with a plan to say what we're doing. And amongst others, as I say, it's development of intensifying of intensity materials. It's renegotiating our annual calendar, because we have to re-gazette the calendar because it's now completely disrupted. So we have to legally gazette it. We are in constant also contact with our partners like your teacher unions, your parents, to look at extending our learning hours. So we have put in place different measures, some to protect the year. So we are going to do whatever it takes. There is no 2020 which is going to go down the drain. We are going to do whatever it takes within the guidelines of the coronavirus safety measures. So we'll do whatever we have to do using the safety measures, but we'll fight to defend the year because we can't afford to lose 2020. It will really throw our system into complete disarray, not only for this year, but for years to come. We need movement. So we're going to have more than 600 matriculants. So we can't repeat the space in 2021. We can't afford it as a system. It will really throw the system off completely. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister Nzimande. Oh, there was no question. Okay, let's go again. There at the back. Oh, yeah, Pinda. I was on Pinda, but fine. On Pinda now. In that order.
Good day, everyone. My question goes to Minister Lindiwe Sisulu. I heard on your speech you mentioned something about 2 days. I didn't really get it. I thought I would get it on the statement. You said those water tankers that are not procured in certain provinces like the Mpumalanga province and Northwest, when are they going to be procured and delivered? Also, how are you going to follow up that the local authorities, I'm talking about maybe the councillors or the provincial government, are not misusing the funds, if you will send the funds, to make sure that they deliver these essential service that is the water to places like, there's a place called Edwaleni. They've been dry for the past 8 years. Until today, they don't have water because some residents, they say, there is no political will or there is no proper leadership around that area that, that they can speak to and get proper services. In this regard, how are you going to get these services to such places that doesn't have really active leadership? Thank you.
Next.
Good day again. My name is Jody Sai. Johnny Sai Maromo. I'm an African News Agency in Pretoria. Just for the Minister of Basic Education, Minister Mucheka, please. Minister, at the previous briefing, there was this issue of nutrition for your learners at home during this duration. What is the position? What is the position now? There was a thinking that someone from the family might be going out to receive a food parcel for the learners who are at home. Is there a position taken on the provision of food parcels for the learners whilst they are at home? Thank you so much, Minister.
Gaman.
I asked why you didn't call earlier before you came here.
Okay. But Minister, on
can you try that number, DG? Because if it is not available, then
that number is not available. And then on the issue of higher education, Babam Pepeto, on the issues of students using this period to study, for instance, you've got students who come from impoverished backgrounds, students who may not have access to Wi-Fi, who may not have smartphones. What other measures are being put in place for those students to be able to gain that material that they need to be able to study for the various courses that they are doing in university? For instance, you've got some who may not have been able to register due to issues with financial aid as the year started. You know how the protracted system of financial aid sometimes happens and people are not being able to register and later on become late registrations. What processes are you putting in place for those students to be able to access that various study material? Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Minister Sisulu.
Thank you very much. I want to go back to Samgel. Samgel, we are dealing with high volumes. The reason why you are not able to get through is because we have that number of problems. But what we have resolved to do is we will put an answering machine that says that we are currently not available, please try again later. We're not available due to high volumes. We will also be in touch with the Minister of Telecommunications to give us more lines for that. But we are completely inundated with calls of people who want to bring our attention to one thing or another. So keep trying that number until you get through, and they will give you my number, and you will call me and tell me you've managed to lodge that particular complaint on behalf of the people of Ulunji. Thank you. Then there was a question about what are we doing about the possibility of procurement from various areas, and how do we ensure that no resources are misused. I did indicate that the reason why we established a central command center at Randwater is to deal, apart from the normal issues that we're dealing with of having central planning and centrally channeled complaints and calls, we are also dealing with central procurement. So procurement is done centrally and sent to the provinces. So the possibility of any misuse of resources is almost nil. And we have auditors and external auditors working on this, but we have central procurement available for us. Thank you. You asked also about Edwaleni. Now that you've indicated Edwaleni, we'll put it on our map. But I don't know if the gentleman who asked that question has got this map. I ask that this map be circulated to everybody.
It is circulated.
You will find that actually people with the highest number of hand washing areas is in Mpumalanga. So you can try and locate at Dwaleni and see if in fact it has been left out. We ourselves will check on Dwaleni to see if that question is not just a question to throw us off our track. But we are quite certain that we have plotted the map and we have plotted all those areas that are in need of water, and we are attending to them gradually. By the time we come back here to report to you again, we will have completed supplying every area that needs water with water. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister Nzimande.
Sorry, the gentleman who asked about Edwaleni, something makes me think he was just pulling our leg. We'll call the call center and check if in fact his information is correct. The information is not correct. Okay, fine. We will check with the command center nonetheless. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mvelas. Samuel, we have done all we can to ensure that students are able to get their materials and access to online as much as is possible. Remember, online also now, as you say, can be accessed through smartphones. And there's fairly widespread presence of smartphones. And in some instances, students actually access places that have got Wi-Fi and other things. But our institutions are acutely aware that not every student would have had access to this. That is why part of the plans we've asked the institutions to embark upon during this lockdown is how do we precisely make sure that after the lockdown, everything is done to make sure that no student is actually left behind, including readjusting of timetables, readjusting of breaks and holidays so that we are able to make extra time, extra lectures, in order to ensure that all the students are able to get the assistance that they need. Ngifuna ukuyisho lento ukuthi nalabo bafundi abasingekho esimweni sokuthi bathole izinsiza kufunda ngoba bengenawo omakhalekhukhwini namanye nezinye izinto zokusebenza, baye kwabanye abanazo bakwazi ukuthi bathole usizo. Kodwa ngokwenhlelo zethu njengomnyango ukuthi uma sekudlulela isikhathi sekubuyelwa emanyuvesi nasemakolleji, abaphathi bamakolleji bayazi ukuthi banomsebenzi okwenza isiqiniseko ukuthi babhekelele ukuthi kuba khona isikhathi esengeziwe sokulekelela labo bafundi okunokwenzeka ukuthi abazange bona bakwazi ukuthola ithuba lokuthi bazilungiselele. As Minister Motshekga is saying, by the way, we are in the same boat also. We will have to do everything we can to ensure that we don't lose the academic year. Much as Minister Motshekga is saying she can't afford to have matrics who do not write, the fact of the matter is that also our post-school institutions cannot afford to lose a year, because it means that you can't have new students, even if school would have finished, and so on. So we are aware of that, much as we are looking at the 21-day period, but we are also looking way beyond that, beginning to say how do we begin to put in place measures, not only just to catch up, but also to try by all means that we don't lose the 2020 academic year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, okay.
Now, can I answer the question of food parcels?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, there was an issue whether as basic education we will be feeding during breaks. And the answer, Chair, is that we normally don't feed during breaks under normal circumstances. And simply because even now during the COVID-19, our infrastructure for feedings in schools, there must be learners at schools, in our kitchens, with our teachers serving food. So outside the school infrastructure, there's no possibility for us to feed, except we are reopening schools, say kids must come back and eat. It's just not possible. So we have communicated that quite intensely, and that's why we really are counting on the work that social development is doing in terms of vulnerable communities. Because when kids are outside schools, they are members of the community. So they'll be catered and supported for in communities. Child could be, I don't want to sound ridiculous about it. Sometimes there are 8 homes with 8 kids, so we have to chase 8 food parcels to same households. Others have already left to Limpopo. So it just will be chaos. So we really are relying on the infrastructure of social development and the infrastructure in communities, because for us, it will be mission impossible. We can't do it outside our school infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Minister Sisulu.
Thank you, Chair. It's just been brought to my attention that there has been an SMS circulating indicating that I may have misrepresented the donation and contribution we got from Dr. Christovise. It's 40,000 liters of water, of 5-liter bottles. It does seem that I indicated that it was 40,000 liters. Thank you.
Yes, and that would be the last round, and the only reason we're taking a third round is because we didn't have volumes of questions. Yes. Thank you.
It's Barry Bateman again from DSCA. Minister Tembo, I think you have something to say. Short clarity, any indication on the latest numbers on positive cases of COVID-19? Any update in that relation? I appreciate it if you can come to our minister after.
Minister of Social Development, Minister Zulu, 2 related but different questions. The one being around, we know that alcohol is not being sold in this period. Is there any kind of preparation in terms of services that might have to do with addiction? Is that a concern at all that there might be a rise in people looking for addiction services? And then secondly, the other concern that has come up several times is that there might be a rise in domestic violence. Is there anything that you or any of the other departments are doing just in case these concerns come up during the lockdown? Thanks.
Yeah. And do what? Share material.
We're in a lockdown. We can't share the minister The minister mistakenly said students must gather and share material.
No.
Minister Nzimande,
I said,
did you say
those students who have got access must share with those who do not. Sharing doesn't have to come together, doesn't mean. We are not in the Middle Ages. You know, we are in the age of technology. Faxes are even gone now. You don't even have to touch paper. It's all electronic somewhere. That's all what I meant. If it was understood wrongly, my apologies. But that is what I meant. That sharing is very important. Sharing is caring. Kulabo bafundi abanezindlela zokuthola insiza kufunda abasizane nalabo bangenazo ngoba kukaningi ziningi ezinye indlela ezingakwazi ukuthi zithunyelwe ngayo lokho asisho ukuthi akuphula umthetho sithi abantu abahlangane ebehulumeni ethe bangahlangani. Ngangcono ke samukela uthe ngikubeke kabi. Bengingaqondile lokho. Ngiqonda ukuthi ngeendlela lezi sezikhona zokusebenza asisebenze ngalo ndlela. I should have also said, by the way, Minister Mthembu, that one of the things that NSFAS has done is to ensure that we pay allowances for learning materials. And in some institutions, we are able to creatively use that money for learning materials to access data as well, as part of the package. Some institutions mix it on how they use the allowance, for learning materials. I should have just added that. Ngiyaxolisa uma ngabe ngizwakala ngale.
Thank you. Minister Zulu.
Thank you very much. Yes, the issue of an escalation of the abuse of other drugs which are a problem in our society, it is a concern. But at the same time, it's not that people who take alcohol maybe sometimes automatically take other drugs. Drug abuse in South Africa is one of our biggest problems. Alcohol abuse is one of our biggest problems. I actually think that while we are in a crisis situation and disastrous situation, this might be just an opportunity for us as South Africans collectively to begin to look at what is it that we need to do to help those that abuse alcohol, but those who also abuse drugs. This would be an opportunity for us to find ways and means of strengthening our institutions, because quite frankly, I was looking at how the police were out there doing their job and doing it very well and catching people with alcohol in their boots and then throwing it away and pouring it out and seeing the anger and annoyance by those that were caught with it. I think as a Department of Social Development, our responsibility is that of the well-being of South African citizens. We will look at this period and say, what are the things that we were able to do to reduce the number of people who abuse alcohol? It's a disastrous situation, but it's an opportunity for us to also re-look into our regulations, re-look into our laws, re-look, because it was shocking the number of shebeens that were counted by the Minister of Police the day he was rolling out the figures of the numbers of shebeens in our townships and in our area. It is shocking. And if as a nation we cannot re-look into that and reduce them, some of them are close to churches, some of them are close to schools. This might just be an opportunity for us. Some people talk about clamp down. There's not been a clamp down in this administration, but this one we might look at clamping down on the number of shebeens and alcohol outlets that exist in our entire nation. It is really not acceptable that we should have so many. With regard to domestic violence, from the very beginning when this whole process started, long even before the shutdown, we were already concerned as a Department of Social Development that we know abuse against women and children, again, is one of those difficulties for us. So we have stepped up in terms of our center where we get where people can call and make the call, and people can be traced actually as to exactly where they are calling from. We are very much aware of the fact that the difficulties in terms of transport, the difficulties in terms of places of services sometimes not being open, this is going to be a burden to most of the women and children. It is for that reason that we thought, let us have social workers, let us have volunteers that can be able to move around and assist us with this. I will repeat again the number. For our call center is 0800 428 428. That number is working 24/7, and those that are finding themselves in difficult situation, they can call the number. The other issue we called upon, neritse re kopa gore communities, families, street by street, house by house, re kopile gore our communities, ibe bona who become the ears and the eyes. Because again, problem ya rena ke gore most of the time, neighbors know gore bana le utlwa next door, ho na le ngwana o llang non-stop. Bana le utlwa gore next door, mewa next door is screaming and crying because they know gore there's an abuser in the house. Many a times ba thula fela ba re no, asi problem ya bona. Violence against women and children is a societal problem, and we know that at this time it might escalate because sometimes people wake up in the morning and they go to work, they spend hours out there, and now they'll be stepping on each other's toes. Sicela ukuthi abantu basincede impela. Khulumani mangabe niyabona. And le number esinikeza yona, akuyona inamba yalabo who are finding themselves being violated. Yinamba okufuneka wonke umuntu eSouth Africa ahlale enayo, because if you happen to see something or hear something, nawe ufanele ukuthi uyisebenzise le nombolo, ufonele ukuthi usave uneighbor wakho. Ayikho into ebuhlungu njengokuthi at all times sihamba sesiyongcwaba omama, sesiyongcwaba abantwana, and yet people in the communities knew exactly that something was going on around there. Isicelo sethu leso si Department of Social Development. Let's take care of each other. This is the moment for us to really to show solidarity with each other. This is a moment for us to step up as South Africans. We are a great nation. I do believe that.
Minister Mtsega.
I thought I might have perhaps misled the public by when I spoke about the 16th as if we're opening. The truth of the matter is, or the point I was trying to make, Chair, was that on the 16th as a sector, we're having a teleconference to assess the situation and then make decisions about what is our next step, which has been planned up to the 16th around how we deal with teaching and learning. The reopening of schools is still unknown to us. It will depend on it depends on the direction and the guidance we'll get from health, but mostly, Chair, which I've raised on Friday, that it also on Thursday, it depends on what all of us as South Africans do to flatten the curve and be able to get our lives back. So it really is a humble appeal to say, if we have to save the academic year of 2020, we have to do whatever it takes as a nation to follow to the latter the directives of health and make sure that we can go back to some form of normality and save whatever is remaining of the year. So I just really wanted to clarify that the 16th is a teleconference, after which we'll be able to speak to the nation to say, where do we stand with the academic year? But it's not the reopening of schools. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sis Lindy, yeah. I'm going to close after you. Yeah.
I'd like to take this opportunity to invite the media to our command center, where they'll be able to talk directly to all our points in our municipalities, should you have any question. So Samgel, you can talk about Ulundi, and you over there you can talk about that area at Dwaleni in Mpumalanga, very directly to the municipal manager there, and they'll be able to explain what it is that is happening. But I have a question, Minister Mtembu.
To who?
To the media.
Oh.
How are they coping with the lockdown? You don't need to come. Because following that, I wanted to find out what they're doing to keep our people at home's morale high, because they're obviously very much in need of people who can keep their spirits high, and we rely on the media to do their part. Thank you.
Colleagues, let me first thank my colleagues for the information you have given to our country on what we are doing. I will answer. and also the Director Generals who are here. We really appreciate that we took the time on a Saturday to come to a press briefing, because these are abnormal times, totally abnormal. Therefore, our people need to be informed all the time. We have not received thus far the numbers for today, but of course we know for a fact that the Minister of Health will put to the public those numbers today. He will, as he always does. We don't have them now. Secondly, there was a question, how do we reach out to people in the rural areas? Apart from the SABC radio stations that have played quite an important role that reach people in the rural areas, we also have community radio stations that are there in all our areas as well, that our people are accessible to. We have made use as well of that medium of community radio stations. We have also printed millions of pamphlets that we have directed to our people in the various areas of our country, of course working with our provinces, working with the districts for distribution. We are still sharpening our communication to our people on this matter, because we have got to do everything in our power to save lives. We are going to come up even with a loud-hailing system in our communities, so that, again, we should not have an instance where there'll be one person in South Africa who says that I was not reached, whether they are in the rural areas, whether they are in urban areas, because we need to reach all our people, which, of course, is our mission. When the president declared the state of national disaster, and thereafter, within the state of that national disaster, declared a lockdown, this was fully supported by all South Africans, all organizations, and indeed immaterial of their political persuasion. In fact, on radios and TVs, even today, we continue to receive support, and organizations, political, social, non-governmental, church bodies continue to call, and sports bodies, by the way, continue to call on our people to stay at home. Now, that is the difference between what this national state of disaster environment is about and what this lockdown is about, as compared to apartheid. Apartheid was not about saving lives. Let's first start there. Apartheid was about oppressing people, black people. Apartheid was about discriminating against black people. Apartheid was about rendering black people voiceless because they had no right to vote. Maybe those people who are saying what we are doing is tantamount to apartheid, I agree with Minister Zulu. They don't know what apartheid was like. They have no idea. This is a mission to save lives, as the president has said. And all of us, again, we would like to repeat that let us stay at home. That is the only way of protecting ourselves against this virus. And again, let's repeat, let's adhere to social distancing so that we don't allow this virus to get from one person to another because we are too close. Let's not practice handshaking or hand greeting, but let's use elbows to greet so that this virus doesn't move from one person to another. Again, as my colleagues have said, let's continue to wash our hands every day, because we touch surfaces where we are, wherever we go, and this virus can also locate itself in surfaces. So you can touch a surface and then touch yourself, infect yourself. So that's why we are saying let's practice these hygiene measures, because these measures will make sure that we protect ourselves against this virus. Therefore, this lockdown is about saving lives. This staying at home is about saving lives. That was not the mission of apartheid. Apartheid's mission was to divide and racially abuse. Thank you, and thank you very much. Siyabulela.